Welcome back to the archives, traveler. Some journeys begin with a battle cry. Others begin with a knock on a door. This one began with a summons. Torrhen sent for them before dawn, not urgency, not danger. The kind of summons that carries weight before a single word is spoken. They found him in the command chamber, standing at the war table with a single item resting on the stone before him. Not a map, not orders, something older. He told them what he knew. The fragments of the Armistice of Ash had not been destroyed when Moria broke the seal. They had been recovered, quietly, carefully, by people who understood what they were holding. People who knew that some things could not be left in the open. They had been taken to Aethelgard, the city of wizards, the city of barriers, the one place in the Meridian where even a sovereign could not enter uninvited. The fragments were there, had been there for 53 years, examined, documented, protected, waiting for someone to come looking. Torrhen did not tell them how to get in. He told them something better. He reached across the table and pushed the item toward Kaelister, the Prism of Aethel. A small thing, crystalline, catching the torchlight and splitting it into something that had no name in any common language. Not a key, not a seal, something between the two. A symbol of trust older than most kingdoms. Aethelgard had given 3 of them, ever, to 3 individuals outside the city walls who had earned something beyond alliance, something closer to kinship. Torrhen was one of those 3. He did not explain how he had earned it. That was not the point. The point was this. If you carried a Prism of Aethel and presented yourself at the Gates of Aethelgard, the city was obligated to receive you, not as a visitor, as something more. The bond ran both ways. The carrier owed the city as much as the city owed the carrier. Kaelister took it. Torrhen said nothing more about it. He looked at each of them in turn. Then he stepped back from the table, and the meeting was over. The Iron Cove soldiers were assembled in the main courtyard when the quartet arrived outside. Packed, ready. Faces that had been through something and were now going home to try to explain it. There were no speeches. There never were with soldiers who had seen what these had seen. A few handshakes. A nod that meant more than words. The kind of goodbye that acknowledges the distance between where you started and where you ended up without naming it. Then they were gone. South. Back toward Iron Cove and the sea. The quartet watched them until they disappeared through the fortress gate. Then they turned east. Vaelwyn and Sarathiel were waiting on the outer battlements. The wind veiled and the silent feather of night. Gray-white and dark as midnight. Patient as mountains. The quartet mounted. The cold morning air hit them before they even left the stone. Then the fortress fell away beneath them, and the Meridian opened up. A full day in the air. The Meridian from above was something no map had ever captured honestly. The scale of it. The distances between things that looked close on parchment and revealed themselves as vast stretches of scarred earth, dead forest, frozen river when seen from height. They did not speak much. There was nothing to say that the wind would not swallow. Somewhere past midday, the feeling began. They felt watched, not threatened. Nothing moved in the sky around them. No shadow crossed their path. But the feeling was there, The particular weight of unseen attention that sits between the shoulder blades and does not leave. It stayed with them for the rest of the flight and gave no explanation. As the day wore on and the horizon shifted, Aethelgard announced itself first as a shimmer. Blue, electric, vast. A barrier visible long before the city beneath it took shape. A dome of woven arcane energy sitting over pale towers and bridges of light. Something built by people who had decided the laws of architecture were suggestions, and beside it, past it, just beyond, something else entirely. A domain, sitting like a wound on the landscape, dark where everything around it still held color, scorched, empty, dead in the specific way that places become dead when something terrible has lived there and left. No name, no flag. They noted it and said nothing. They flew on. They descended toward the gate. The guards saw them coming long before they landed. 2 massive rocks carrying 4 riders was not something that required close inspection to notice. They landed at the gate threshold and dismounted. Silence. Then stares. 20 years since anyone had seen a party like theirs walk through that gate. The guards did not reach for weapons, but they did not step aside either. One of them spoke, asked their purpose, asked their authority. Kaelister reached into his coat and placed the Prism of Aethel in his open palm. The crystalline surface caught the light of the barrier above and split it, the same way it had split the torchlight in Torrhen's command chamber. But here, at the threshold of Aethelgard, the effect was different. Here it looked like it belonged. The guard who had spoken looked at it for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. The Gates of Aethelgard opened. They were inside the safest city in the Meridian, behind barriers that no sovereign had ever breached, in a place that had held the fragments of the Armistice of Ash for 53 years and had not told anyone. The feeling of being watched had not followed them through the gate. Whatever it was still outside. For now the quartet was safe. The city was around them. The fragments were somewhere within it. And somewhere beyond the barrier, past the city, a dead domain sat in silence with no name and no explanation. What happened next deserves its own chapter. The archives are now closed.